Hey everyone! Before we get started, I just thought you might like to know that I wrote a book. Government in Exile is a weird little combination of political drama and 1930s style screwball comedy. The lord of a manor is forced to take in hundreds of legislators and bureaucrats from the country next door, which just got invaded. The only way to get these annoying people out of his house is to help them liberate their nation. If that sounds interesting to you, you can pick up Government in Exile in paperback or ebook through the link in the description. Thanks. Now, please enjoy the video. Watching The Last Jedi was, bar none, the best time I ever had in a movie theater. It was the first film I went to after graduating high school. I think I must have bumped into just about every person I'd ever known who'd come back from their first semesters at college for winter break. Actually, that might have been the last time I saw several of them before we lost touch. I wish I'd sat next to them, but nobody could switch seats because the house was packed. There was a kind of energy in the room, a sort of sizzling community about the place. Sizzling community? Communities don't sizzle, unless it's Nagasaki. If you can't already tell, I like The Last Jedi far more than most, but even I'll admit it's got some serious issues. The picture's dialogue is a step down from its predecessor. Humor's a bit sloppier too. Some of the jokes landed, while others veered into that crummy Whedon-esque land from which no comic has ever returned. Poe's transmission to Hux is fine in theory, it just went on an order of magnitude too long. In fact, most of the movie's issues are all variations on this idea. Fine or even great in theory, but lacking in one way or another when it comes to execution. The difference between The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens is the difference between a diamond in the rough and a polished turd, or between an ugly chick with good bones and a beautiful woman with a skeleton made of dried spaghetti, if that metaphor's more your speed. The mutiny subplot is fascinating in theory, but was dealt a critical blow by the casting department. I really just don't care for Laura Dern. She comes across like she thinks she's better than you, which, yeah, she probably is, but it's still annoying. The Canto Bight stuff is a mess. I absolutely appreciate what Rian Johnson was going for here, exploring the military-industrial complex's role within the galaxy's conflicts, the unseen forces pulling the strings and making bank off the suffering of everyday people. I'll always gun for more movies to explore those kinds of themes. That being said, the concept is handled with about as light a touch as a battering ram to the chest. This whole section of the movie has a big case of the tell-don't-shows. The scene where Finn is up on that balcony watching the Space Horse race while Rose lectures him about the moral corruption of defense economics is particularly egregious. Drop that scene and use the time saved to give a coherent demonstration of the point you're trying to make. The whole movie in general struggles to wed its underlying ideas to its plot. Lit 101 recap coming at you. Coming at your face! In all stories, there exist three kinds of stakes. External, the material objectives of the conflict. Internal, the touchy-feely character stuff. And philosophical, what the outcome of the conflict says about the nature of life, the universe, and everything. Internal, or philosophical stakes kinda have to be in the driver's seat. You figure out how you want your characters to develop and what you want your moral to be, and then you design a physical scenario in which those things can come to pass. A central issue with The Last Jedi is that these stakes aren't aligned all that well. For instance, it's difficult to say that freeing a bunch of horses makes your failed, hyper-important military mission worth it when the children who clean their stalls are still literally slaves. Additionally, Poe's realization that leadership is about more than just noble sacrifice is pretty thoroughly muddied by Admiral Holdo nobly sacrificing herself not half an hour earlier. When you design a material scenario in which one character unleashes untold devastation onto their enemy through giving their own life, but another character's attempt to do the same thing is labeled as the behavior of a dummy, this complicates both your narrative and your message. Throw in the fact that the former is a woman and the latter is a man, as well as the pathetic reality that every scrap of media and art is now viewed as nothing more than kindling to hurl upon the blazing pyre of our insipid culture war, and it can be easy to see how the movie got tarred as woke. But Rian Johnson isn't so much woke as he is a sloppy storyteller. Don't get me wrong, there are far worse things to be than a sloppy storyteller. At least Rian is trying to tell a story. A real one with big ideas and grand complex themes. Nowhere can this be better seen than with Luke's storyline. If I had to guess, I'd say that the thing that lost people more than the politics or the jokes or the Holdo maneuver was pretty obviously how they handled this character. Maybe I'm just a contrarian douchebag, but this element was actually what sold me on the picture. I don't buy into the idea that Luke's behavior in The Last Jedi is out of character. In the original trilogy, what's the last thing we see Luke do with a lightsaber? Nearly kill a family member and then throw it away. What's he do with a lightsaber in this movie? Nearly kill a family member and then throw it away. While some would say this represents a stagnation in Luke's character, I'd say it points to the eternity of his struggle and what it represents. That impulse to look at the problems of society and the human heart as a thing that needs eradicated rather than rejuvenated, that impulse is always with us. No matter how far above the fray us enlightened beings think we've risen, we are always dangling above the gutter. People do backslide. Societies do regress. Rian Johnson takes the repetitive storyline that J.J. Abrams handed him and uses it to comment on the cyclical nature of history, a vaguely Eastern pattern of birth, death, and rebirth. Then he begins to start asking questions about how we can escape from it. He brings Luke low so that he can rise above it all and show us a path to do likewise. Despite his past mistakes, despite the destructive tendencies he houses in his soul, Luke can stand before his nephew as the boy rants and raves about how I'll destroy her and you and all of it. And without firing a shot or swinging a blade, save the resistance and inspire the galaxy to build something better. This, what Rian is trying to do here, is Star Wars at its best. I just wish he was a little better at it. I think every movie has a single moment that sums it all up, the good and the bad. In The Last Jedi, it's when Rose tells Finn, that's how we're gonna win. Not by destroying what we hate, but by saving what we love. That line perfectly encapsulates the whole movie. It's absolutely correct, boiling down the complexities of a galaxy-spanning conflict into a single ethical principle that truly captures the spirit of Star Wars. Unfortunately, it also sucks. The Last Jedi had big, ambitious ideas that are, by and large, articulated horribly. I think one of the reasons people had such a problem with Rose is that the task of voicing those explanations often fell to her. She's sort of the mascot for the movie's biggest overriding problem, which is that it has a bunch of little problems. I've learned to look past most of them, but they are absolutely a cataract fog doing their damnedest to conceal the parts of the picture that are truly special. It took me some time to learn how to do that. I had a conversation with a friend once. You surprised I have one of those? Me too, frankly. He told me that his opinion of The Last Jedi started out really positive before gradually becoming more critical. I had the opposite experience. In a few months' time, I had formed a pretty glowing idea of the picture. However, my initial reaction as I sat in my car after leaving the theater was a kind of creeping dread. I'd loved what I'd just seen, but the question of, well, where do we go from here, was squatting atop my hood, staring at me through the windshield. 2 years later, it climbed down, opened the door, and introduced itself. And its name was The Rise of Skywalker. God help us all.